Calling all Public Square listeners to the table, this is the Public Square from the American Policy Roundtable. I'm Wayne Shepherd, and the team today, Dave Zanotti, Rob Walgate, Jeff Sanders, Melanie Elsey, and our producer, Alan C. Duncan, all talking about the monthly update. Now, if you're not receiving that update, you need to sign up for it. It's free of charge, and you can get a copy by calling us. I'll give the number later, or you can go online to thepublicsquare.com, or you can read it online, but I kind of like getting the hard copy. I think something you need to read and think about as you go. So ask for it free of charge at thepublicsquare.com, the monthly update. All right, the team's going to talk about it now, asking the question, should Elon Musk give up? But first, a little background on how we come up with the monthly update. Dave?
Thanks, Wayne. It is always a delight to take some time to talk about the monthly update. And I know that when people deal with nonprofit organizations, that we all get our mailboxes filled with mail still to this day, or our inboxes email, where people are trying to communicate with folks that support them and pray for them and are, so to speak, on the team and want to know more. And we're all busy. And so we try really hard to keep our communications as limited as possible so that people can get information that's very important. We do not farm our monthly updates out to direct mail companies or to PR firms. And a lot of people do that. They send this stuff out to fundraising companies, and they sort of assemble the stuff and put it together. And I'm not condemning any of that.
You don't have AI write this?
No. No, not going to happen. For over 40 years now, we have sat down and written this. And the process is simple. I mean, we go through trying to figure out what is it that the folks who support us, who pray for us, who share this information, who are on the team at whatever level, who bring these materials into Sunday school class, who listen to the radio program, who support us financially, whatever level of support that might be. What's the most important thing we can try to communicate with them right now about what we're seeing happening around the country? And that comes from a commitment. And the commitment is not something that we invented, and it's not political. The commitment comes from a passage in Scripture that I'd like to start our conversation with today. And this is totally spontaneous. It's one of the most haunting passages from the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus says, "You are the light of the world." Have you ever thought about that? I mean, we're very comfortable with him saying he's the light of the world, but when he says to his followers, to the people there gathered to hear him, "You are the light of the world." Okay, that actually I get a knot in my stomach when I hear those words.
Well, I feel very unlight-like much of the time. I'm more like a smudge pot than a lamp on a hill, you know. You can see that, can't you?
I mean, well, what do you think he means, Jeff? I mean, I'm going to say this in such a bad way. Please, God, forgive me. I mean, sometimes I read that verse and I say, did he really mean that?
Yeah. He said, as long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. And then later he says, you are the light of the world. So we are intended to be a source that dispels
darkness.
Yeah. I don't know any other way to say it, but evil. Yeah. We are driving away evil. We're driving away all of the depression, all of the discouragement.
You know what's interesting to me is when he's describing every person who has a relationship with Christ as the light of the world, that's all personality types. I am not someone who would go in and work a room or, be that outgoing. My husband and I have opposite personalities in that way. I say he's a circle, I'm a square. And, he loves to have fun. He loves to chit-chat. He loves to converse. And I would be content just to sit and watch a crowd or watch people. But yet I'm supposed to be the light of the world too. I'm supposed to, regardless of our personality types, we are what he is describing as light.
Well, and I think there's also a variety of different ways you can be light.
correct?
Sure.
I mean, well, you can get light from a match, you can get light from a flashlight, you can get light from the sun, you can get light from turning something on. So there's all those different ways that you can be light. I think that's the beauty of how Jesus created each and every one of us differently to be the light.
Well, just to keep your analogy going, Rob, that those different types of lights are called for in different settings. It depends on what the job is, the kind of light you need. We've got studio lights that are on us right now. They need to be as bright as they are, and you can turn them up or down. But sometimes you might just need a match.
Right, because the basic function is to dispel darkness.
And there's no geographical boundaries on that. You are the light of the world, right? Wherever you are, you're the light. And there's no like time clock. Well, you're light of the world 60 hours a week and you get, a day and a half off. No, there's no time constraints. There's no socioeconomic constraints. There's no generational constraints. There's no time stamp on that says it expires at, the 21st century. We're the light of the world. And Jeff, I love what you said. I'm more of a smudge pot. Yeah, and some people feel like they're barely a candle, barely, and flickering at that.
Well, but that's okay, because when you're in a dark arena and you're a candle flickering, you provide a lot of light. I think that's what we have to be careful of, is when we get into those dark places that we don't try and shine a light that constantly just is in people's face and blinds them. We can do that as well. And that's not a healthy place to be. I think that the size of the light you need to be is depending on the environment in which the Lord has put you at that present moment.
Yeah. And being a light bearer is another way, I believe, to say that. Because we are, what Jesus said, you are the light of the world, yes, but the light doesn't come from our personality. It doesn't come from our fallen humanity. The light comes from the Holy Spirit.
That's right.
I think that's one of the cool things about the day of Pentecost, is that the tongues of fire weren't just hot and weren't just fascinating. They were light as well. So we are the light of the world. So we're the light bearers. I don't think it's a coincidence, though I can tell you that when we made the selections on a number of the things that we do today and have been doing for many, many years, like the lamppost being the symbol for the public square, I'm not exactly sure at that moment we really understood what we were getting ourselves into.
And people should be looking for an updated logo coming from us pretty soon.
Yeah. Still be a lamppost.
With the lamppost, yes.
Yeah, still the lamppost.
Still be a lamppost. And when we came up with the line, spreading the light of liberty across the land, that wasn't like all walked out from a PR firm. We prayed about that, and we thought about it a long time. We passed it around, and I'm not even saying we had it all connected. Just like this monthly update begins with a passage of Scripture, the unfolding of your word gives light. In thy light, we see light. So we are not the source of the light. In some ways, we're a light bearer, a light carrier. I might even say we're a light reflector. Right? We are the ones, and this is universal. This is for all people of faith who follow Christ. This is our responsibility. And of course, it ties into the Great Commission and everything else. So when we do these monthly updates, what we're trying to do is to share, however poorly or well as the month may go, we're trying to share the latest look at what we're seeing in the light. I hope that makes sense. So this month, I have set up the opening question. And my opening question was this: should Elon Musk give up? I came across an article from Axios, and it's only in recent months that I've come to discover that Axios is highly influenced in ownership by Steve Jobs' widow, Laurene Powell Jobs, I believe is Powell Jobs. And she owns a significant portion of Axios, and she's highly invested in the Atlantic as well as in ownership. So another one of the billionaire class from Silicon Valley that has taken on the idea of building a tower of media influence at the multi-billion-dollar level. Because when you take the impact of Atlantic and Axios combined, That's very serious. They sort of are one of the towers that emanates the signals that go out across the progressive left. And so they're a player. And there are other towers. Sometimes I think there's at least 6 or 7 in the major corporate conglomerates, but then there's towers in social media. There's just, if you were going down, if you were doing a helicopter tour, or there was a drone going down this giant canyon for miles and miles, you'd see towers along the canyon. And those towers are basically the media are pinging endlessly the American people. Like every day, if you want to know what's going on, you got to consult about 6 towers who are basically in the political information business, who will tell you what reality is. And they're out there. Now, our team scours probably at least a dozen to try to figure out what's going on. Now, why would we do that? Well, because we believe that our commission is to bring light to the conversation. And sometimes what the towers are sending out is anything but light. So I'm reading Axios and Atlantic, and of course they're just absolutely blasting Elon Musk. But Axios had an article with a picture. They had a picture of Musk walking, and they had fire coming out from the back of his feet and leaving a trail of fire. And the headline basically was "The Trail of Self-Destruction" that follows Elon Musk.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it self-destruction.
Yeah. In other words, Elon Musk has basically set himself on fire, and he's burning everything else down as well. And so the idea that the faster he gets out of town, the better off we're all going to be.
So he's not personally enriching himself by doing this. Which way do we want to take it?
Because everything was doing great before he showed up, right? $37 trillion in debt, but we were doing just fine until he shows up, right?
And yeah, and those are good numbers, Jeff, important numbers to remember. Not good numbers, they're horrible numbers, but it's good for us to recall those numbers. We've got a national debt that's in the 37 trillion zone. That's not the deficit. What we're overspending and adding to our debt every year right now is in the neighborhood of north of $2 trillion. Congress has an annual budget, and every year they overspend the revenue by $2 trillion. So what's 37 now, by the end of the year will be 39. By the end of next year will be 41. I mean, a trillion here, a trillion there. Before too long, you're really talking money. And this is where we are. So the whole story coming from Axios and from the Atlantic and then from the towers is Musk is an idiot, and he should get out of town as fast as possible.
All right, agree or disagree, you want to hear the rest of this conversation coming up on The Public Square. Here's that phone number I mentioned earlier for your copy of the monthly update. It's 1-800-522-VOTE, 800-522-8683, or ask for it at thepublicsquare.com. Back to the team in a moment.
We'll be right back for more on The Public Square.
Straight away back to the team now on The Public Square as we talk about the monthly update from the American Policy Roundtable. Axios came up in the last segment of our conversation, so Jeff, I'll turn to you.
Does anybody know what axios means in the Greek language? It means worthy or suitable. It's used often in the Greek New Testament, and in the Greek Orthodox Church or in the Byzantine Catholic Church, when someone is ordained as a priest or a bishop, the congregation shouts back, axios, worthy. They are worthy. So it's a very religious term.
Fascinating choice of terms for the publication. It's not exactly what I've been shouting out loud reading it right lately. But,
Well, Dave, when you bring up that Axios article and the image of Elon Musk with the fire following behind, Elon Musk leaves legacy of self-destruction at DOGE is how the title reads. I guess it made me kind of rewind the tape in my mind and think back, the folks that are saying that fire is burning everything now, where were they a handful of years ago when inflation was at 8 or 9 or 10% and the stock market was at 30,000. I mean, these same folks that are screaming panic right now are screaming it while the market is well above 30,000. And again, I'm one who thinks we look at the market way too much. We shouldn't be following it by the minute or by the hour. We should probably be following it by the year instead. But where were they when inflation was happening that way? So the angle that these publications, these towers that you referenced in the first segment, the angle that they take depending on who the players are that hold the office always leaves me shaking my head and just striving to get more truth out there, regardless of who's in holding those elected offices.
I can remember when Reagan was president and the national debt was $3 trillion. And the news agencies were all screaming bloody murder. Now that it's $3.7 trillion, silence. No, nobody thinks that's a big deal.
Well, back in that time in '82, the debt had just for the first time topped $1 trillion, and Ronald Reagan put the Grace Commission into effect, which was in 1982 an organization very similar to DOGE, to analyze waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. They issued a massive report, volumes. One media report, so it was 45 volumes, recommending changes, which Congress promptly ignored at every level and continued to add to the debt and the deficit spending.
I was 5 years old in 1982, and my parents tell the story of them buying their first home that year. My dad always will sit down and we'll talk, and maybe he'll hear me rumble about like our mortgage interest rate or something, even though it's low from a handful of years ago, and a refinance. But my dad's like, 1982, ours was over 16%. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
He's like, our home was over 16%. And like, I can't fathom that.
So what happened to Elon Musk? He came in with a great deal of humor and clearly a great deal of enthusiasm. And everyone said, hang on a second, this guy's volunteering. He's the richest guy in the world. And he and Donald Trump are sitting down to figure out how to approach waste, fraud, and abuse to try and establish a goal. Now, first question we got to ask is, has he failed? Well, it looks like he's failed if you just listen to what the towers are saying. He's running out of town. There was a giant argument in the Oval Office a few days ago, which got into a shouting match, which then went out into the hallway, and then it really got loud between Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, and Elon Musk, and it got loud and it got ugly, and Elon basically left town. And he's told his shareholders that he's maybe 1 or 2 days a week, was it, with DOGE, but now he's back to work. They say his net worth has dropped $71 billion in the 100 days or so that he worked with DOGE. And we know that his stores have been firebombed. People driving Teslas have had their lives put at risk and their properties destroyed. Can you believe that there's a group of people in America that are willing to burn down buildings, shoot live rounds of ammunition into public places and into car dealerships and attack vehicles and people driving them because someone wants to cut the national deficit by $2 trillion a year?
But that backlash, it had to have come from all of the misinformation, the deceit about what DOGE is actually doing. What was really instrumental for me was the interview that Brett Baer had at the end of March with some of the members of the DOGE team. And they're talking about the antiquated computer systems. They're talking about the more than 20 chief information officers that are in one agency and over 700 programs that can't talk to each other. So it's not just cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. It's pulling out an antiquated system to make it function in a way that's productive. And when you tell people that the DOGE team is trying to take and steal their Social Security, there's going to be, because that's not true, there's going to be a public response to that.
But there is an element in our country that knows exactly what the truth is. They are not fooled by misinformation. They know exactly what they're doing, and they hate our country, and they want our country to fail, and they are very violent, yes. I'm thinking Antifa, but all the people who are thinking like Antifa. They hate us, and they want us to be destroyed.
We get caught up in personalities as well, right? Many of these people that are vandalizing Teslas or setting them on fire or screaming things are the same people that were advocating for the purchase of electric vehicles, and Teslas in particular, just a handful of years ago, because they believed that was the fastest way to help reduce carbon emissions.
Yeah, how much carbon does burning a Tesla create? Is that
Good
can
one.
you buy credits?
Or how about burning a Tesla dealership?
Yeah.
How about burning that one down? Yeah. So there's something here that's very strange, and we're trying to run away from it. You'll notice that the towers, the corporate tower media folks those stories just disappeared. They just went away real fast because they're scary stories. When you realize the revolutionary violence, the anti-human violence that is out there, when certain groups of people don't get their way, they're not hesitating at all to put other people's lives at risk. Not hesitating at all, destroy their property. So Musk lost $71 billion. Now, that was a little bit overdone, because since that story first came out, the stories regarding first quarter earnings of the big 5 tech companies include the Magnificent Seven, I guess they're called now. They used to be called FANG. Facebook and Apple and Amazon and Alphabet and all that. Now they've got Tesla in the mix. They're called the Magnificent Seven, I guess, on Wall Street. They all had their heads handed to them in stock the first quarter of this year. Their earnings are all down, and so is Tesla's. Now, Tesla's down more because of, obviously, the violence, the revolutionary violence and terrorism that's been exhibited against them. But at the core of it, we've got people, let's ask to turn on the lights. We've got people acting out life-threatening violence against their neighbors because Elon Musk is trying to expose where our debt is in the federal government and why we can't get our debt under control. He's trying to show people what that looks like. And that calls for a revolution?
He's essentially pulling back the covers. He wants people to see what's underneath. He wants people to understand just how bad the entire system is from agency to agency, because it's not limited to just a few agencies. It's all of them.
Anytime you cut something, people notice, right? I mean, I think about it, in our family when we say, all right, we're going to cut down on stuff, and we probably need to cut down on buying some desserts. Well, you notice, and everyone likes dessert, so because they're used to having it. And I think that's what you have. The loudest noise comes from the folks that where the things are being cut. It's going to help the taxpayer as a whole, but there are people that are making noise about it just for the sake of making noise.
And what about some Christian organizations who were depending on federal funds for a lot of the services that they provide? I'm thinking of some. We can either say their names or not. Like a Samaritan's Purse. They don't depend on federal funds, but they do get a portion of their budget from federal funds. And so what about people who are afraid that some of those services they provide to people in need, literally food and help?
Show me where they're wasting the money.
Yeah.
Show me where they're spending the money on frivolous things.
A lot of what they're uncovering is where money has been spent either on really strange projects like the transgender mice, or
but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking
what
about
they
the
said
Christian
they were going to
companies.
spend it. What they said they were going to spend it on, they didn't. And I would think organizations like Samaritan's Purse would be spending it in an ethical, fully transparent way.
Or the money's been spent and we don't know where it went.
They're afraid that their budgets are going to be cut by some of these cuts as well.
Well, are we suggesting that these Christian organizations are burning down Tesla dealerships? I'm a little confused by the question.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to take the argument of somebody who might have a genuine concern.
Oh, okay.
Not a hysterical reaction.
Yeah, if there are legitimate programs that are being cut, that's problematic. There's no doubt about that. Now, I am aware of Samaritan's Purse having some of their funding, but that's a situation where the government needs help to reach people, and they're outsourcing that work to Samaritan's Purse. Samaritan's Purse is going to do that work anyways. They're getting more help, but they'll do what they're going to do, and they're not dependent on the federal government. There are some other programs, and particularly some other church works, particularly in the realm of immigration, that are solely dependent upon the federal government, and those questions are a little bit closer to the bone. No, and it's the same thing as there's people still trying to get COVID money. Okay, I mean, that's just ridiculous. And the organizations, by the way, that took COVID relief funding, some of them are Christian organizations, and they look pretty embarrassing right now doing what they did. So no, there are people all over the place with their hands in the pot. The question is if it's fraud, if it's abuse, and if it's waste, and people don't like it, tough luck. The idea is, who likes having their money used inappropriately? That's the question.
Well, I think that's what people get lost in, the efficiency. Is the government being efficient in how it spends its dollars and our dollars?
Time to take a break, and we'll do that right now. And we'll take advantage of this break to double check some numbers and get back to you in just a moment here on the Public Square today, talking about the monthly update, The Towers. You can receive a copy online at thepublicsquare.com.
We will be right back for more on the Public Square.
If you are just joining us, this is the Public Square, a team conversation from the American Policy Roundtable. And I'll just let you know that team is Dave Zanotti, Rob Walgate, Jeff Sanders, Melanie Elsey, and our producer, Alan C. Duncan. Dave, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, the question came up during the break, did we have the number right on Elon Musk's losses? And they do vary. Some people are saying 70, some people are saying $120 billion in the first 100 days of DOGE. It's somewhere in between there. The point of the matter is it's a lot of money. And I'm not sure that even begins to include the damage to dealerships and all the other things that were involved as well. And I think it's also important to remind people that basically the people that Elon Musk brought in are coming in as volunteers. If they're forced in that voluntary situation to take any compensation, it is a pittance for what they're giving up in regards to their work. It is truly an endeavor based on an idea, trying to do the right thing the right way. Now, people are mad because Elon Musk moves too fast and he breaks things and people are screaming at him and he overpromises. You know what? I get all that. I get all that. I like the way Elon Musk is trying to fix this problem better than the way that a whole lot of people aren't trying at all.
And I think people lose sight of the fact that Elon Musk, yes, he's losing tens of billions of dollars. He's still worth hundreds of billions of dollars, number one. But the Teslas,
he's still the richest guy in the world.
Yeah, the Teslas that are being vandalized or lit on fire, you're messing with your neighbors, real people that don't have billions of dollars to go get that replaced, that are going to have to deal with an insurance company. It's going to create a problem in the process. And I'll tell you what, from the folks, and I know a poll was mentioned earlier, but we're all out in the streets talking to people each and every day. I've talked to two people who had no interest in buying a Tesla, and they're going to buy a Tesla in the next month because of everything that's happened. They're like, no, you can't let the bullies win. That's what I'm not saying I'm doing this. I'm saying people, I said, you're really going to buy a Tesla? Or you're worried about it getting keyed? And they're like, if you don't stand up to bullies, then bullies win.
Exactly.
Well, when the motto of Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg's empire was move fast and break stuff, the world turned him into the youngest billionaire in the history of the human race. Now Elon Musk is being summarily drummed out of Washington, D.C., with untold violence perpetrated against him and people who drive cars that say Tesla on them, and because he dares to move fast and try to bring results to government waste. And okay, it does. They're both from Silicon Valley. Okay, they both have voted for plenty of Democrats. Now, why is it that Musk gets literally driven out of town with the claim that he's basically caught himself and everything else on fire? Something here doesn't add up. How can Melanie asked this question, and it's been haunting me. That's why we did the update on this and why we're talking about it now. Melanie asked the question, how can any thinking person, any honest person be against accountability for your tax dollars? And you know what? It's a rhetorical question. Yet Elon Musk is being driven out of town, and the towers of American media are celebrating it. They're thrilled. My question is it just because they're jealous? I mean, the scripture says in the book of Proverbs, who can stand before jealousy? Is that what this is?
I take encouragement from how many times is the media wrong before we realize that it's wrong. And supposedly they have gained a victory and Elon Musk ran out of town. I don't believe he's run out of town. And I don't believe he's quit. Because when you look at his life, how many times does Elon Musk quit? And what really scares Elon Musk? Now, I'm not promoting him as saint of the year. I know all about his foibles and sin and other things that he's done.
Yeah, nobody's suggesting a Hall of Fame moment for Elon Musk here.
How many of his rockets crash on the launch pad, blow up in midair? And he never says, oh, well, I guess that didn't work. I'm going to go home and play golf for the rest of my life. He never does that. He goes out and builds another rocket ship, or he has the people
Rob,
do it.
You noticed the pejorative about going home and playing golf.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. But anyway, okay, so plays tennis for the rest of his life. There Pickleball for the rest of his life.
Goes to the shooting range. I don't know. Pick your.
He probably has his own shooting range, but he doesn't give.
Point well taken, though, Jeff.
But on the flip side, he's not being vilified because he's not been successful. He's being vilified because he has been successful in uncovering all this stuff.
Melanie, that's propaganda. He's not been successful enough. I read Axios. He's only gotten $160 billion identified, and some of that, maybe they borrowed a little from the last administration. It's just not enough. He's moving too fast, but wait a minute, he's not doing enough.
Oh, no.
So which is it?
His people are going to be staying there. And the metric is not just the dollar amount that's saved. The metric is cleaning up, the fraudulent calls that 40% of the calls that come into Social Security are fraudulent, looking for a change in bank account numbers. Things of that nature that are structural. His team is being extremely successful in uncovering and modifying and fixing.
So if there's any logic at all to people critiquing him, it seems that if you're in favor of the status quo, or if you're mad that the status quo is going to change, perhaps maybe you're benefiting from it in some way.
Right.
He's threatening some sort of pipeline of payment that these people have access to.
And don't forget, that's only the money that we know about.
Is he threatening the end line person who gets the benefit, or is he threatening the people that make a living administrating it and politically benefiting it from it? And they're telling the people at the end line that they should go blow up a Tesla because he's coming after you.
I think he's trying to make government more like a business. The problem is, if the government was a business, it would have went out of business long ago. It's never had the efficiency model. It's never had. What other business isn't forced to balance its books? That's why when Treasury Secretary Bessent a couple of weeks ago, I thought it was maybe an April Fool's joke, but he gave a financial literacy lecture. I saw some of it on Twitter, and I'm like, the government should be looking in the mirror and saying these things to itself. Congress should be saying the thing. I think, Dave, we talk about Article 1 often. Congress could do a better job taking the lead. They're responsible for the purse of all of this. They could do a better job taking the lead when it comes to the responsibility of the purse and the actions being done. They could have some legislation that backs up what DOGE is trying to do.
So I'm reading an article that's a follow-up on this, and I'm not even going to give the source of it. It's one of the Tower Media places in derivatives. But it says that Tesla cars have gained the nickname swastikars.
Ha! Took some thought to come up with that one.
I think
that's pretty lame.
Have any of you heard that term before?
Never.
No, but I think some people need to do some research on the history of car companies in general.
Okay, so here's the point of how the towers work. Somebody made up that little cute term, And nobody's ever heard, no one out here in the tax-paying working world has heard it, but they're going to make darn sure that everybody hears it because that's what they do. That's called propaganda, and the Nazis were great at it.
If I said that around my kids, they would pillory me for a dad joke. Like, they would not let that slide. So it's not even a good pun.
Yeah.
So if someone's going to say, okay, obviously you guys are in love with Elon Musk. You must all drive Teslas. He's probably given you money. You're on his payroll. You're probably fans of SpaceX. You may all even have Neuralinks, and you're just basically
guilty as charged. I have all of those things, yes.
The Elon Musk world. None of that is true. I'm thinking about what Melanie Elsey, the den mother of righteousness in public policy for over 40 years, said a couple of weeks ago, which is, how can anyone who pays taxes be opposed to someone asking, why are we wasting your money? I can't get past that. And this guy is summarily drummed out of town, and violently so.
I've got the answer. Government is God. And if you are criticizing or trying to cut things back, you are blaspheming against the God of the left. How dare you? It's religion.
Let's jump in right there for our next break on the Public Square. This conversation is based on our monthly update, which comes in written form to you through the mail. Yes, through the mail. And it's a great way to read the monthly update. You can request it free of charge at thepublicsquare.com. And by the way, if you are listening to this program on radio, and if you have to leave us at any time and catch the rest someplace else, that someplace else is thepublicsquare.com or with our smartphone app. Listen there.
We will be right back for more on the Public Square.
All right, the topic today on the Public Square is our monthly update put together by the team here and something available to you free of charge. So let's get back to the conversation now. The update this month is entitled The Towers.
Well, another Axios article that came out talked about Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Elon Musk getting into a bit of it's described as a heated shouting match within earshot of President Trump in regards to the IRS. Someone compared it to, there was a quote, it was middle-aged men thinking it was a WWE in the hall of the West Wing. And this argument recently took place. So it doesn't appear that all is well in regards to DOGE, or at least the agreement that the Treasury Secretary and Elon Musk have in what's being done as it pertains to the IRS and some other things.
Yeah, that's been really widely reported, so it's not speculation at all. And those are two rather large people, and it is clear that it became both vocal and physical. It was very, very loud, and there was a lot of obscenity involved. At one point in time, the reports say that Bessent said something which you all can imagine to Musk, and Musk said, "Say that louder." And apparently he obliged. So it's that pretty hot.
Well, and
pretty hot argument.
Elon Musk, I mean, he's had disputes with others in President Trump's cabinet. I mean, Marco Rubio comes to mind, and there's others he's been in disagreement with. The one common denominator is that Elon Musk is the outsider, and he's trying to the folks that are there, as maybe some would consider them the swamp, but have lived there for a while, are in disagreement on how things are to be done. And Elon Musk, there's no doubt, is an innovator, and he's going to try and think outside the box, and that doesn't always work well in Washington, D.C.
Well, let's drop back to the numbers for a second. Somewhere around the 100-day mark for DOGE, that they were posting gains in savings against the national deficit of $160 billion. Now, that's about 8% of their goal, and they have more than 400 days left. Their goal was to get to saving $1 trillion. That's their goal. And because they've got to cut $2 trillion from the budget, what their hope is that they can get $1 trillion out in savings, and they can turn around and get the other $1 trillion from increased revenues, whether that's economic growth, whether it's tariffs, whatever, but to bring back balance. Now, you'll also notice they're not saying they want to do that in a year. They're saying they want to have it on paper and in process in a year, but it's going to take several congressional budgets that happen every year to actually bring this thing to zero. So it will take more time. Problem is, in less than 100 days, they drove the guy that was carrying the biggest amount of weight for free, they drove him out of town because he upset too many people's comfort zones.
What we have to keep in mind as we are looking at all the work that DOGE is doing is that DOGE is just one puzzle piece. They're going to be, it was recently reported, Kevin Hassett, who's a National Economic Council director, he was talking about how they're opening up 625 million acres to energy exploration. So you've got the increased energy production piece, you've got the tax cut piece, you've got the budget process cutting on spending, and then you've got the waste, fraud, and abuse piece that's going on. So those combined elements are going to result in something that's using more efficiently the funds that the government collects and spends.
I want to go back, Melanie, to something that we've talked about often. And Jeff, I'm going to ask you to make sure we get this right. But one of leadership is an art. That's a book that Max Dupree wrote. And there's some principles in there that make a lot of sense, that follow some biblical patterns and certainly some historical patterns as well. First definition of leadership is to define reality. The final responsibility is to say thank you. Those are some of the principles. One of the principles that I've learned in history about leadership is while a biblical leader is called, and even in the Greek language, the gift of leadership in Romans chapter 12 indicates that a leader is a person who's supposed to get out in front.
Sure.
In essence, if a parade is coming by, the leaders are supposed to be in the front. And that requires that leaders see a lot and see more. If you're in front of the parade, you got to see more than the person in the middle because you got to know which way this thing's going.
Yeah, you cannot lead from behind.
However, history teaches us that leaders can't get too far in front because if they do, they can get shot by their own troops, which sounds a lot like what happened to Stonewall Jackson, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's reconnoitering late at night. He believed in leading from the front, and boy, he was leading from the front. If you're a leader, you have to be in the battle. Your troops have to have confidence that you share in their pain and you see what's going on. And he got out too far in front, and he was shot by a North Carolina regiment.
Yeah, so he was coming back to his troops, and they thought he was charging from the enemy lines because he had gone so far out front that his own people didn't know that he was actually on their side, and it was dark, and they shot him.
Yep.
He died a few days later.
That's right.
Died of friendly fire. Now, some people say, well, wait a minute, wasn't he Confederate? How can you call him a leader? Yeah, he's also one of the greatest generals of the Civil War. Without a doubt, one of the most courageous people in the Civil War as far as a field commanding general. And so he should have been smart enough as a leader to know not get that far in front. But his enthusiasm overtook him, and he paid with his life. Mm-hmm. Now, did Elon Musk get too far out ahead of where the American people are? But is it the American people, or is it the towers?
It's not the American people, and he has to get out there because time is of the essence. $37 trillion is not going to go away tomorrow, and nobody else seems to be serious enough to face this giant to try to get rid of it. Nobody else has a plan out there.
I think all of the ammunition is being spent by the towers. I don't see the average American person disregarding what Elon Musk's team has done. Keep in mind, Elon has seen more than he has shared, so we don't even know the full scope of what they're doing. But as he is heading back to Tesla, he is leaving a full-fledged team behind him to continue the work that he promised to get done. So it's not going to stop happening.
Well, that's what we hope. That's what we hope. But there's no guarantee without him actually running the train that it's going to get in on time. We hope that. In addition to that, the amount of power that's lost because the towers have basically killed the momentum, sent him packing with his feet on fire, now working their strategy of shame and disbelief and all of that stuff. So the momentum got blown up within 100 days. And I think that's important for people to realize. When you talk about something that is honest and decent as let's save everybody's tax dollars so we can have more to go around for the programs that really matter, what that'll do is that'll get you set on fire and run out of town.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say this in the way of hope. The shouting match that Elon got in was, what was that, April 17th? Mm-hmm. They were posting on DOGE.gov all the way up through April 24th, April 25th, cutting millions upon millions of things even days after that. So that's a good sign that the work can still continue on.
And remember, back to the interview that Brett Baer did with his team, there was a man by the name of Steve Davis. This man is a former rocket scientist. He was an aerospace engineer at SpaceX. He is the COO of the DOGE day-to-day operations, and we don't see anything of him in the media. So he is completely behind the scenes operating, overseeing what the DOGE team is doing.
Well, this conversation is not complete. It will be completed in a few moments, though, as we finish the program up. Some of you have to leave us at this time. If that's the case, please listen online at thepublicsquare.com or use that smartphone app free of charge in your app store called The Public Square. And be sure to share that website and free app with other potential listeners. More coming up.
Right back for more on the Public Square. Ever feel like your voice just doesn't get heard? Politics isn't just for the important people who you see on TV or hear on the news. Politics is for everyone. Don't get discouraged. You're not alone. For almost 30 years, the Roundtable has been helping people get informed and make a difference. The first step is to get the facts. The Roundtable Monthly Update is a great place to start. This important update can be sent to your home every month, helping you know what's going on behind the scenes and how you can leverage your impact. Thousands are reading the Roundtable Update every month. Why not join them? To get your first copy of the Roundtable Update, log on today to aproundtable.org.
Let's make the most of our last few minutes together here in the Public Square with the team as we continue talking about the monthly update. And again, please sign up for this free update at thepublicsquare.com.
So during the break, of course, there's all kinds of conversations that are going on. And what's the outcome of this? We don't know what the outcome of this is going to be.
Right.
We know what's happened so far. Now, this isn't right. What's happening to Elon Musk is not right. I don't know how else to say it, and I don't know why else to say it in any other version. The guy's trying to do the right thing. Now, if he's doing anything wrong, he's still basically working this out on paper. Congress can step in this game at any point in time and take the whole process away from Musk, the whole process away from the executive branch, and say, we've got it from here, and prove their way out. But the cowards in Congress would rather let Elon Musk get set on fire. After all, he's the world's richest man, so who cares? Let him take the heat, and then we'll go ahead and come along afterwards and clean up.
It's going to be interesting to see those members of Congress that are running in 26 and 28 and how this is discussed on the campaign trail, because will they talk about the process? Will they talk about the things that have been cut and advocate for reinstating them? Or will they just spend time attacking the individual? Because I think that's what we've seen so far is we haven't seen people justifying the use of spending for our government. We've seen them attack Elon Musk. Well, there's a difference there. Let's take the personalities out of it and let's just talk about it from a dollars and cents perspective. And why should my and my neighbors' taxpayers' dollars be used for these programs and these things? It's a perfect place for Congress to step in and lead from the front.
If we were going to cut the federal budget by 10%, Melanie, it's roughly the federal budget annual Congress is passing is north of $4 trillion, right?
Correct.
So what's 10% of $4 trillion?
$400 billion.
$400 billion. So if we cut $400 billion, all right, that's 40% of the way that they wanted to get to by cutting 10%. So they're trying to cut what, Rob, 25%?
Yeah.
They think they can find 25% in waste, fraud, and abuse. That's not losing anything that's vital or necessary to the sustaining of the country or the people. It's just waste, fraud, and abuse.
And factored into the waste, fraud, and abuse, and maybe it's more of the waste, they're shrinking the size of government. So they're shrinking in terms of salaries paid. But in the Biden years, over hundreds of thousands of individuals were added to the public sector growth. That's public sector growth. That's not private sector growth. So a part of this conversation in waste, fraud, and abuse is shrinking the size and scope of government, not just finding where monies are being misspent.
So they're trying to get to a 25% smaller outlay.
Correct.
And they're not saying it has to happen tomorrow. They're trying to say we can scope it out and get it on paper by July 4th, 2026. And if it takes Congress 4 years to get to where they've actually hit that number. So in other words, we're actually implementing the number 5 years from now, because they keep working at it, $400 billion at a time. And they work it down and work it down. How are we worse off than if we never tried?
We're not.
We're going to be worse off if we don't try. We're going to be real bad.
Because then the American people would have more of a say on where their dollars go. You would be given to them and allow them to make the chance. And by shining the light, by being the light and putting it on all these things, you're forced to ask yourself questions and say, wait a minute, is that the role of government? Is that where we want money to go? The problem is we've seen through the years where government has, to Alan's point earlier in the program, we've kind of looked at other ways on the government has taken care of some things that maybe is the church's responsibility, where the church has dropped the ball on a few things where, hey, when we read the scriptures, that's a responsibility of the church. We shouldn't be paying tax dollars and have the expectation that the government's going to do it in their own way.
Well, the other thing that's going to happen over time is that the emperor with no clothes is going to be exposed. Because when you have, like the video that I saw recently of Chuck Schumer, who represents the state of New York, he says the goal of DOGE is clear, to destroy Social Security. Well, when Social Security is not destroyed and people are actually protected, and they see that over time, then the lies are exposed. So that's going to happen, as well as the efficiencies are going to be laid out.
Well, there's so many ways we could wrap this up, and we need to. I want to read the PS to the update, and I want to encourage everyone, if you don't receive our monthly update, please just visit us at thepublicsquare.com or aproundtable.org and sign up. We'll need your email address to send it to you, and your hard address if you'd rather get it in print, because we still do it in print. It's only 4 pages. It's called 4 Minutes for America. That's all it takes. Now, why? Because we'd like to stay in touch. Why? Because we'd like to invite you to help us spread the light of liberty across the land. And the easiest way to do that is take that paper document that we send you and share it with a friend. And they're going to say to you, can I make copies of this? Yeah, you can. As many as you want. Give it to as many people as you want. Well, and how about on the email? Can I send the email? Yes, send the email to everyone that you know. It's not a fundraising document. It's an informational piece. Now, on occasion, we let you know where some of the needs of this outreach are, because people ask us, tell me more. What can we do to help on the financial side? Because we're competing against the towers. We are a little candle in the wind against these massive towers, these massive conglomerates. Now, if we had $1 billion a year to spend, all right, we would know what to do with it. But that doesn't win the battle alone. It's just not just about money. Truth has its own power, because the person who said, I am the light of the world, still cares about this world today. He's also the one who said, my Father is always working, and I am too. Okay? We're just following in his wake. So we're not afraid of the towers, but we got to do our job and light the candles. And this is part of the way of how we do it. So for anyone who's just catching on saying, oh, these are a bunch of Republicans defending Musk. No, not the case. I'm a registered independent. There's more than one of them sitting around this table. Okay. Musk, don't know him, never met him. But you know what I did? I wrote him a note. I felt so bad when I saw that picture in Axios. I just wrote him a note. I don't know if he'll get the note. I sat down and wrote him a personal handwritten note just to want to encourage him and to thank him in the most thankless job I've ever seen. Drummed out of town in less than 100 days for trying to save people money. You know, look, I'm stuck paying the taxes I'm paying. Melanie, you were very vulnerable talking about last week. We're all getting killed in regards to paying taxes on a percentage basis. Okay, forget it. I'm stuck. There's things I could do right now to pay less taxes, and I don't do them because I don't ever want to be accused of taking something that wasn't right. And these are legal things. I don't even want to get close to that edge. But what really bothers me is I'm thinking of the guy who works out there in a job and the gal, the husband and the wife who are working their tails off, who will never catch up. Their house will never look as good as they want it to look. They'll never drive the cars they wish they would drive. They're doing everything for their kids, everything for their health, everything for their relatives. They're never going to have half the lifestyle that most people in this country have, but they pay their taxes. And that's the person, to me, who's being the most unjustly treated right now. When people say, get out of town, we don't want to talk about waste and fraud and abuse. We just want our turf protected. So here's the PS of the update. It says, none of us here own any Tesla products, nor have we booked passage on SpaceX, and Neuralink scares us all a lot. But Elon Musk is right about this. If Congress casts us into bankruptcy, everyone gets hurt for a long, long time. May God have mercy in this hour.
Well, that's a wrap on this week's conversation of The Public Square, all based on the monthly report. And I hope you will read it online at thepublicsquare.com and request a copy to come to you in the mail each month. All right, thanks for listening to The Public Square from the American Policy Roundtable. On behalf of the whole team, I'm Wayne Shepherd. We'll see you next time.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.